in week, I don't know what, week 6 or something of the 7, I don't know, of the PPL, your Cotswold Whimsicots are going up against Daria and her Minneapolis Meowscaradas. I'm pretty sure that's right. I don't know why I bothered to introduce this anymore. Like, why do I bother to say the teams and everything? It's not like we're going to be talking about Pokemon. At this point in the season, despite getting a good result last week, I don't think we've got much of a shot. Oh, I can hear my audio below me. Did I forget to mute my microphone? I think I just muted it. We're safe. Don't worry. Yeah, we're essentially out of playoff contention, right? I think even if we win out, we probably still wouldn't make it. So I could talk about Pokemon. You've clicked on a Pokemon video, but I don't know. That just seems wrong somehow. I don't know why I would ever do that. There are some interesting moments in this game, to be fair. There's some sort of teachable things, if you do follow the game, to take away about preserving kind of defensive checks, like how high you value certain pieces, picking the right sacks, and when to play aggressive, when not to play aggressive. This game is actually quite an interesting game, to be fair. We could talk about that, but I don't want to. I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about other things. So, firstly, I wanted to say in this, if I have to make a sudden cut or I have to whatever, Katie's mum and sister are currently in for surgery. They're having a kidney transplant. Her sister is giving a kidney to her mum. Obviously, it's a serious operation, so if there's any updates or something and Katie suddenly has to burst in the room and talk to me, then I'll have to make a cut, of course, because that comes first. But that's that bit of housekeeping out of the way. What else was that? My headphones feel weird for some reason. I feel like I can hear myself more than usual. I don't know why. Anyway, we'll ignore that. What else did I want to talk about? So, after last week's video with the Mian Shao thumbnail, I'm sorry for that. I sort of almost got to this point now with my thumbnails where I'm like, how cursed can I make it? Like, what can I get away with? Like, they make me uncomfortable. I don't know why I'm doing it, but it's just like, it's like that thing of like, I've got a friend who, whenever like we were kids, if his mum had been cooking and the hob was like really hot, or the stove, whatever you want to call it, was really hot, he would like want to put his finger on it all the time. He'd just touch it all the time to see if it burnt his finger. It's kind of like that now. I'm like at this point where I'm like, how fucked up can these thumbnails get? How weird can we make them? So I apologise for that. But anyway, after last week's video, which was pure chaos, I've come into this one with a bit of a theme, something I want to talk about, because usually I come in with an idea and then I sort of stay on topic, whereas last week I didn't, so we ended up talking about ferrets and stuff, and it was a whole fucking mess. That's what happens when I don't come in with an idea in mind. So should have re-recorded, but didn't have time. This time, doing it properly. So I want to share a little story. This, by the way, you'll see later in the game, fucked me up. Because one, I didn't know this thing got a speed boost when it terrored. And two, because I'm just not used to this mythical generation, what are we on, 11, 12? I don't know. I forgot that like that thing was even terrored. Like in my head, that's just what Ogerpon looks like. Despite having used its cousin Zarude for all of Egg, I still didn't remember what Ogerpon looked like. So, by the by, we'll get to that later. So yeah, I wanted to share this little story, and it's going somewhere, so bear with me. When I was doing my master's degree, I had a friend who was writing as well. I did creative writing master's degree. I had a friend who was a writer as well, and we had to do like a showcase of our writing. So at the end of the year, we all had to get up on stage and read out an extract of like what we'd written for that year. It's like a live audience and stuff. Not my cup of tea at all. Like I was super nervous, didn't really enjoy it. But turned out my current PhD supervisor and my former tutor at that point, he was a guest there. He'd travelled up to see it, and so we were like, oh, it's, I was like, it's great to see you. It's been so long, or whatever. And we were chatting and having a really nice time. And I had this really embarrassing moment where my friend, who was also a writer there, was also a musician, quite a good musician. And as I was talking to my supervisor about something, he said, well, all writers are just failed musicians. And me being me, of course, turned to my friend and was like, oh, like you. That's what he's talking about, you. And she was like, so I'm a failed musician. And I was like, no, I didn't mean failed. I mean like you're a musician who's waiting for the big break. It was just super uncomfortable. I was like trying to get out of it. It was really, really uncomfortable. And also, the other thing that made it really, really uncomfortable is because I'm a nervous person, I don't know where to look when I'm talking to people. I've just been staring at the floor this whole time, and it turns out she was wearing, like, open shoes, and I've just been staring at her feet the whole time, and then I got in my own head thinking, oh god, does she think I'm, like, staring at her feet? I'm not interested in feet, I swear I'm not interested in feet, I wouldn't be staring at her feet, I have a girlfriend as well, I'm definitely not staring at her feet. But because I'm me, I was going round and round in circles, like, oh my god, she thinks I'm staring at her feet, and it really freaked me out. Anyway, that's not the point of this story. The point I wanted to make is that is that I'm an idiot. No, yes, well, yes. But is that this idea, like, all writers are kind of failed musicians, whatever, is going somewhere. Stay with me. It's a bit of a stretch. It is very different. I think people are like painters, writers, musicians, almost like, have I even got the audio on? Have I got my microphone recording? Oh, I have. I remembered to unmute it. I just suddenly thought, oh my god, I haven't unmuted my microphone. But I have. Good. Anyway. Yeah, they're all kind of similar. Because they're like artists, right? It's an artist. It's a creative thing or whatever. But I don't know much about music. I don't know much about painting or any other form of arts. But from what I gather, here we go. From what I gather, you can get some like child geniuses, right, in music and art and stuff. But if you look kind of through the history of like literature and stuff, there are very, very few child prodigies, if any, and usually when you look into them, they are like the children of already very successful writers, or the partners of very successful writers, or whatever. There's usually like a bit of doubt if they actually produce the work themselves, and then when they get older, they usually don't produce anything of note, which suggests that perhaps they didn't. And the reason for that being is that like writing, perhaps more so than other art forms, is something that you really can't do without experience, right? You have to have lived a life, gathered stories, met people to form characters. You have to do all that stuff. And secondly, is people like to think of artists as like receiving divine inspiration. So we think of like, you know, a Mozart or someone, and almost like a god, if you're not religious, which I'm not, almost like a god, like God-given talent, innate talent, whatever, striking him, a moment of just the light bulb going off, and then composing this beautiful piece of music, or painting this incredible painting, whatever, right? And in writing, the reality is, for those of you that have never tried like creative writing before, you won't get very far if you just want to write in flashes of inspiration, because the truth of writing is that you write a first draft and it's always really bad. I think Ernest Hemingway, very celebrated writer, said the first draft of everything is shit, and it is. And then you have to rewrite and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite, and you go over it and you go over it and you go over it. Why am I mentioning this? Well, it got me thinking about YouTube, right? I know this is like all over the place, but stay with me. It got me thinking about YouTube and the video that I posted last week, and the fact that I think most of us in these draft their games, because it's usually like a live format, we sit down and we just one take it, right? We just sit down, we one take it. So whatever we say, that's what's there. Some of us maybe write a script, some of us maybe post commit like I do, some of us do literally live commit, you know, and then it is just a one take, whatever comes out of mouse comes out of mouse. Some of us do edits, whatever it may be. But for the most part, it's a unrefined art form, right? It's an unrefined commentary. It's an immediate form. More like music or painting, right? I'm sure musicians and painters, by the way, do spend hours rewriting music scores, redrawing, repainting, but I do think it's slightly different. And one of the things with writing is like trying to get a voice. So when I write, usually my first drafts of things, and this is going to really surprise you, having watched some of my YouTube videos, my first drafts of things are usually kind of silly. I usually have silly things, tangents, silly aside, silly little comments that I put in that make me chuckle as I'm writing. And then as I go back through draft after draft, they slowly get removed, because after hearing it 3, 4, 5 times, I realize that's not funny. You're an idiot. Take out the testicle joke. Stop calling your penis a crotch dog. Do you know what I mean? It's those kind of things. At the time, I'm laughing, but then I watch it back or I read it back and I'm like, that one's not going to land. Maybe remove that, right? So those kind of things, but it's about creating a voice. It's about projecting the voice that you want on the page. So, you know, if you're someone who writes war stories, for example, you probably want to create a certain tone of voice that sounds very, maybe strict, maybe regimented, maybe someone who's, had military training. These things typically might be a more masculine style voice, might talk in shorter sentences, might use less emotional sort of adjectives and things, might just move it more straight to the point. That kind of thing, right? If you're trying to create a certain image, these are the things that you might think about, and you go back through and you change it and you change it and you change it. And over the course of a whole book, by the time you finish, you've got the idea of the speaker in the book, right? The words on the page, who's the writer, the kind of speaker, because there's a degree of separation, right? The words you're reading aren't coming straight out of someone's mouth. They've been revised so many times that they're almost a character aside from the writer, right? It's a sculpted image. They've taken away the testicle jokes. If you read my work, you've got me minus the testicle jokes, so it's not really me. Do you know what I'm saying? Do you get what do you get where I am? Hopefully, I don't know. So you kind of get that sense of that person, and it's the same on like YouTube and stuff, right? In that Shady Penguin was one of the first people I watched, right? Shady Penguin, huge channel, huge entertainer in this space. One of the first people that brought me into this, or Joey Pokémon, currently in this league, right? Another big person in this space. We watch these people and we get like an idea of them, right? We build up an image of them from their videos. We don't get to see them outside of their videos, so we don't know if that's really them, but we get that cultivated image. For what it's worth, in my interactions with Joey, at least, he's very much the same as he is in his videos, but you get what I'm saying. And even there, I'm comparing my interactions with him as a person to what I see on video. So clearly I have developed a mental image of him from his videos. And I don't think most of us are that conscious in this space of that. We're not, as a writer, again, I have to think, well, how will the reader perceive this? I read a book about tennis a little while back. I know nothing about tennis. The author was really shitting on a tennis player. I don't remember the player's name, but it was a tennis player that was a star at 18, 19, looked like going to be the best in the world. I think they did reach like #1 in the world, and then immediately were partying, drinking, something about wet t-shirt contests, I don't remember, and immediately sort of fell away. And the writer was hugely critical of this person. And it put me off the writer because there was just like this lack of empathy. There was almost this, it felt like bitterness to me. This thing of like, oh, you had this God-given talent, you got to #1 in the world and I never could, and you just squandered it. And there was no thought of like, okay, but what was that person going through? What was their life like? Were they in a position where they could adapt to being the best tennis player in the world, where they could step up and handle that pressure? Or were they someone who was ill-equipped to deal with that because of their childhood, because of, disability, whatever it may be? All these things come into play, and the writer, to me, just felt angry. So that put me off the book, right? I feel I've lost my train of thought here a little bit. But, yeah, we're trying to, like, we as a writer, you think about that. So when I write, I try to be conscious of the image of me that the reader will walk away with, because ultimately, the way I phrase it to people now is like, I want to read books with someone that I wouldn't mind going for a drink down the pub with. I don't want to read books by someone that would upset me or whatever. Like, sometimes I read those because they're interesting and worth reading, but I'm not going to like the book that much, right? It's that kind of feeling, someone that you kind of want to be friends with. And I think YouTube is like massively similar, right? When you watch a Pokémon video, a Shady Penguin video, whatever, there's that feeling of like, I could be friends with this person, right? I could totally get to know this person. Like, they seem like my kind of person. I could go for a drink with them, whatever. And that's why we come back every week, because I guess sort of digitally, virtually, whatever, we kind of are friends with them, right? We're hanging out with them through live streams, through whatever. But in this space, I feel like on YouTube, because it's it's ultimately an amateur's platform, right? It's self-published. Anyone can do it. There's no editor here that gets our videos before we put them out. The editor, in terms of people will edit Joey or Shady Penguin's videos, sure, but they don't edit them in the way that a book editor does. So no one would get a Joey video with CTC, right? And say, Joey, you gotta cut this collaboration, get all this bits with this man out of your video, it's bad for your brand, right? And his video editors aren't doing that. They're just editing things together. I love CTC, so that's not me like calling him out. That's just an example of what a book editor might do with someone that's maybe a little bit more irreverent and controversial in what they say. So you kind of get this weird thing where you get this slightly raw, slightly unpolished version of someone online, because we're all, even those of us that are professional content creators, are still kind of amateurs in a way that we're self-publishing. It's not going through the machine. It's not getting polished by industry. It's still quite a direct, like, I record the video, the live comm, and then I post it to YouTube, right? So it's still quite a direct medium. I don't know, I was thinking about my video last week, and I was thinking, I think this is where I slightly went wrong last week, because like some of you seem to really enjoy the video last week, and I'm very grateful for that, and I think some of you didn't, and that's fair enough. It was a bit too chaotic, I think, for some people, which is understandable. It probably would be for me, so I get it. But it made me think about the fact that I think for the last few years of doing this, I haven't known what kind of videos I want to make. Like, I rebranded the channel, changed my name from Dr. Slacking to Matthew Drafts. Doing all these things, and it's because, and I said I wanted to be more chilled. I wanted to just be like me hanging out with you, chatting to you, right? That was what I said I wanted to do. I literally am ignoring the game. I'm literally hanging out and chatting with you. So I guess I have achieved it to an extent. But I wasn't really sure what I was doing. Was I supposed to be the Pokemon guy that did analysis? Was I supposed to be the weirdo guy that just makes rambling content? And in reality, what I've presented over the last year or two is just me. I've not tried to cultivate an image or a style. I've just sat down like last week and just recorded myself being myself, literally as I would be in any scenario, with my friends, with my partner, being messy and chaotic and all over the place. I've just recorded that unfiltered and put it up on YouTube, and I think that's probably slightly where I went wrong. And that might sound really weird, because as consumers of media, of art, whatever, we think that we want like the authentic, right? We want the real you, man. We want to hear you talking about ferrets and crotch dogs. That's the real you. That's the you we want to hang out with. And it's like, yeah, some of you to an extent, but also like that's still only one side of me, right? There's another side of me where I worry about my mother-in-law, though we're not married, going in for surgery, where I worry about, you know, my car having all these issues, and there's so many, we're all so multifaceted, but we try and shrink it down on YouTube and put it out and create a consistency. Because if every time you came back here I was doing something totally different, it wouldn't have any audience retention, right? If every video was a totally different video to the last one, in theory you wouldn't be able to build an audience. I go to Joey's videos because I know I'm going to get a mix of a good sense of humor, a genuinely positive, nice guy that also knows the game really well, will commentate and analyze the game really well. So I will go back to his videos when that's what I want. With my videos, sometimes you click on it and you might get a little bit of serious analysis, and sometimes you might get this. And some of you will like that, some of you won't. So, I don't know, I've just been thinking a lot about how we build this. And I think in live streaming you see it even more, because it's so hard for people to put on a facade in live streaming. So, you know, I never knew that Shady, for example, was as competitive as he was, or could get as angry with himself as he does, until I started watching his live streams, because in his videos, he's able to contain that side of himself a little bit more. And I'm not saying that's a negative side of himself, but I think when I first started watching him, he was kind of the Christian PG channel. I think that's waned a bit with time, but he definitely wanted to cultivate an image of the wholesome family man now, especially the wholesome dad. And I think that kind of salt that comes out sometimes, he probably saw as being in conflict with that image. So maybe he held it back. Pure speculation by me, probably unfair, but that's maybe how I see it. But then when you watch his live streams, you see that more, and you get a more complete picture of the person, but it's still an incomplete picture of the person, right? And I find it really interesting. I love these kind of things to think about, how and why content creators are doing what they're doing, and how different it is to have, you know, like I say, painters could go out in the street and hang out their paintings. But if they want to make a career of painting, from what I understand at least, unless they're selling fucking whatever that online shit was, not Bitcoin, what was the online shit with the monkeys, like Eminem and John Terry were into it? You know what I mean, I can't remember what you call them. Unless they're doing that bullshit. To make a career painting or drawing or a visual medium, you probably need to get your work in a gallery. You need to go through people, it needs to be peer reviewed. To be a writer, you can self-publish on Amazon and stuff now, but the success stories there are very low as well, and usually the ones that have potential get picked up by a publishing house or an agent and get refined and then put out again. Musicians, you get independent acts, but usually they've got some affiliations or ties to people in the industry, and again, once they get to a certain level, they get signed by the industry and then put through the machine again. So I feel like YouTube is such a fascinating space because it's one of the few times where people aren't kind of filtered and peer-reviewed and micromanaged to a degree in the same way, but can still be successful. Like I would say, you know, Joey makes a living from this, right? As far as I'm aware, this is his job. He has no other side hustle or anything. So how many other arts, and this is an art, like make no mistake, like this is an entertainment medium, so there is some artistry to doing what he's doing, what anyone's doing. Just because it's not a painting or a classical art doesn't mean it's not an art. But yeah, it's like it gives the illusion of being like one of the rawest, one of the most authentic, but how much is it really? And how much do we think about how we brand ourselves, how much we put us? I say we, I'm not a full-time content creator, but you know what I'm saying. How much does Joey or Shady or whoever think about this stuff? I don't know. I'm a clinical overthinker, so probably none of this matters to anyone bar me, but I just thought it was kind of an interesting topic to dive into. So should we talk about the game? Should we talk about Pokemon? I feel like there was more I wanted to say on that, but my brain just won't allow me to think of it right now. I guess there's a lot on my mind. So comment down below your thoughts. You continue the conversation for me, please, because I've hit my limit. So you give me your thoughts on all this stuff, and I'd love to hear it. This game was a really fun, patient game. You might have noticed earlier on I took a lot of damage on my Skarmory after I got knocked down by Donphan and then got earthquaked. This is what I was talking about, kind of how you value assets in Pokemon, or pieces, if you think of like chess pieces or something. I should have kept the Skarmory around. I should have sacked off like the dog or something like that, but my personal bias got in the way where I want to see the dog do well, or I want to see the dog get killed. So I was like, I'm not going to sack it off yet because I can still get use out. I can still hopefully make it do something. But there's like a Dunsparce spawning it here, so it's really not going to do a lot anyway. Like I'm sure I could break through Dunsparce, but with the amount of HP I have left, I'm not going to get, with Hazards up as well, I'm not going to get that much usage out of my out of my dog, so I should have let that go down. I should have kept the Skarmory, because now Ogerpon is a real problem. And yes, Correa can kind of help with the Ogerpon, but Knockoff is going to hit me super hard. I'm not Colberberry. I believe Daria was pretty worried about Colberberry. I think she said after the game, so that's kind of allowing me a lifeline here. But the Skarmory would have just been such a better check to that. And truthfully, on the Donphan's Earthquake, if you look at my team, it's not like I had a lot to switch in, so I was having to pick a sack. But this is why it matters so much which sacks you pick. Also, I went with protective pads on this because I didn't want to get like paralyzed by Static Zapdos on the Mienshao. I think in hindsight I should have been braver. I think if I'd gone with an Assault Vest like here, I could have switched it in on the Hydro Pump, and I would have been in a bit of a better spot. I'm also concerned because when I calced it, it didn't look like close combat was guaranteed to kill the Milotic from this range. So I was a bit like, oh man. I think I future sighted as well. I think if I'd gone for like the Psychic or the Sludge Bomb, maybe, that could be a lie. But I think that would have then put it in range of the close combat guaranteed, and I could have made a different play. But I have to sack Nina there because I haven't really positioned my pieces. I haven't been thinking about the board state. I haven't been thinking about, okay, so what's the best move to like 2 turns from now? I've just been clicking buttons and trying to hope that the dog will do something. You see my face here. I'm just like, I don't really know what to do. I don't know what to do either, mate. Don't ask me. I came into this video thinking that I would just talk about the idea of like a voice on YouTube, a kind of author's voice on YouTube, and instead we're having to analyze Pokemon. I didn't think this would be happening either, mate. You know, I'm not prepared. I have to go into this because I have no other play, and I'm just like, all right, well, we've just got to hope the close combat kills, because I think I could U-turn and then sack something else and then get it in. But if you look at how many mons she's got left, 4 versus 3, I'm so behind in the sack race, I can't afford to sack anything. So I'm like, all right, I guess I just got to go for it. Hope this kills with close combat, and there's not much else I can really do. And I'm concerned about the Ogerpon because I didn't know it got the speed boost. Or do I just call? No, I don't call her to switch, do I? And try and get the momentum. Nah. Don't do it. Just take the kill, man. You gotta go for it. Yeah. Good. So yeah. Anyway. So we're kind of in this game state where it's like Ogerpon outspeeds everything on my team. I just have to keep the Slowking healthy enough to be able to take the knockoff as she sacks off the Dunsparce, Which actually, like, I don't know if that... I kind of understand that play because I think... Because I just sacked the dog. She's like, well, I don't need the Dunsparce anymore. But because I don't... I guess she didn't know the close combat wouldn't kill. She didn't know my item. But yeah, from my perspective, I was thinking, oh, I don't know if you should have sacked that because you could have just tried to Hydro Pump me and I might not have killed you. Whereas now you have to switch back in on hazards and I definitely will kill you. But it does give her a free switch into this, which is exactly kind of the end game that she wants. But I'm also thinking, good, the more switches this thing gets, the more hazards wear it down, I might be alright. I didn't have Fake Out on this Mienshao. I really, really wish I'd put Fake Out on it instead of Triple Axle. I think I'd put the Triple Axle for the Zapdos, so I could just try and like blow up the Zapdos. But in reality, Stealth Rocks plus Knockoff was enough. Like, I think this is the thing we forget sometimes with modern Pokemon getting so much coverage and so many options and stuff. It's like, oh, well, I'll do it the quick way and run Triple Axle. But actually, for the whole game, just running Knockoff plus Stealth Rocks and then the Fake Out priority with this many hazards would probably have been really good. As you see, we do not take that well at all. I think I still have one more Mon left, so I definitely should have sacked the other Mon. But this is why I mentioned at the beginning of the game that I forgot this was Terra. So when this was doing that much damage, I was like, one is a crit. But two, I didn't know that it had the Terra Grass boost to its damage, the double stab. I didn't even factor that in. Like, that's just me being confused by this generation. Which, after this many, how long has Generation 12 been out? How long have we been playing this for? Generation 13? I can't remember. How long have we been playing this for? What I should have done is sat the Tyranitar there, got the Sand up, got another turn of Chip Off on her, then gone it into the Slowking. Don't know if I could have lived a knockoff anyway, but potentially could have lived a knockoff. But what I'd calced here was that when I didn't have -1 defense, I would live this Ivy Cudgel and be able to kill her if she was Jolly, which I thought she would have to be. So, because it would outspeed Houndstone under Sand, and I think it would outspeed this thing, or at least speed tie with this thing, I can't remember. So I was like, alright, she's gotta be Jolly. So if she wasn't choice banned, which she's not because she's switched moves, I'm pretty sure already in the game, see me crossing my fingers, I thought I'd live. I hadn't factored in the Terra Grass damage, so I was trying to play to an end game there where that was a 50-50 roll without Terra. It was a 50-50 roll. As I say, if I'd gone into Tyranitar, got the extra turn of Sand Chip, then got into Slowking, which I'm pretty sure would have died to Knockoff, but I might have been able to bluff her out, maybe, then maybe I could have steered some sort of Mienshao end game here. But as I say, I just completely forgot about the extra boosted grass damage, so it's kind of on me. I was trying to play off that 50-50 shot rather than maybe the bluff. I don't know if Knockoff would have killed the Slowking. I think it would. But I still think the bluff would have been better in hindsight. So yeah, that's it. This season's been a mess. One, because I haven't known what kind of videos I want to create, as we just spoke about. I haven't known what I'm doing, what I wanted to do. Changing to this post-com style, I think, threw that off even more because I was like, alright, I don't really know what I'm doing with post-coms anymore. Do I really focus on the game? I find focusing on the game in this gen post-com too hard. It's too slow. I need to edit it before I commentate over it because I feel like there's too many gaps. Yeah, it's too slow of a game. In the old days when I did post-com in Gen 7, you had the replays, right? So you didn't have the live com below you slowing everything down. So yeah, so this season's been a mess. One, because I haven't known what kind of videos I want to make. Two, I changed my video style mid-season going to the post-com. And three, I just tried to draft backwards and it didn't work. Tried to meme and it backfired. So yeah, oh well. We'll try again next week. Hopefully we can pick up a W.